This is the newly released HOPE D60 Astronomical telescope from ToupTek. This is ToupTek's first telescope for amateurs, and it is specially designed for astrophotography. To achieve the best imaging performance, it uses a 5-element optical glass design, which includes a piece of high-performance SD glass. The specifications of these telescopes are 60mm of aperture and 280mm of focal length, and an f-ratio of f/4.66. Personally, I find this f-ratio slightly slow. However, ToupTek claims that its imaging quality can reach the limit determined by the laws of physics for a telescope of this aperture. I have already taken tests with it and have some final images, so I have a general understanding of its optical performance. But before discussing its optical performance in detail, let's first talk about the hands-on experience with this telescope. ToupTek includes a very large carrying case as standard with this telescope. This case is quite well made. It can hold the OTA itself, and there are pre-cut space for the electrical focuser, so you can store it with the focuser attached. There are also slots for adapter rings, or if you don't have adapter rings, you can put your filters there. There is also some additional small storage space. However, I personally find it a bit disappointing that there are no dedicated slots for the smart controller stylometer or for a camera. I hope ToupTek will release a larger carrying case in the future so I can carry everything in one bag. Now, when I first unboxed this telescope and picked it up, I was quite surprised. Why? It is significantly heavier than other 50mm to 60mm aperture telescopes I've ever used. ToupTek states that for optimal stability and to prevent damage from shaking, the entire telescope is made of aluminum and manufactured using CNC machinery. After handling it, I also found that the overall build quality is very solid. The telescope comes standard with a dual-speed focuser, which I believe is made in-house. After testing it, I feel that the adjustment feels well not as good as the Yumi dual-speed focuser I've used on another telescope, but still ranks among the best focusers I've ever experienced in astronomical telescopes. On the other side of the telescope, there is a glass viewing window, showing an approximate focuser travel scale. I consider this a mood lifter feature because it definitely looks more high-end. It also comes standard with a CAA. The adjustment feel of this CAA is slightly tight with a noticeable resistance. However, the advantage is that based on my tests, unlike some other brands' CAAs, where turning it might misalign the focal plane, ToupTek has done a better job here, although adjusting it is a bit more effort. The core quality is maintained very well. The focus travel of this telescope is relatively short. My measurements show it's only about 30mm. My guess is that ToupTek designed it in this way. With astrophotography in mind, if the focus travel were long, it might sag at certain positions and affect the image plane or similar issues. A shorter focus travel can help mitigate this issue. Then there are some conventional designs common in astronomical telescopes. For example, it comes standard with a base for mounting a controller like stylometer, and it also includes a carrying handle. This handle can be used to attach guide scopes or similar accessories. However, one area where it excels is this guide scope handle. Let me switch to a close-up shot later. This guide scope handle features a slot design, allowing it to be directly mounted onto an Arca standard tripod head. This is a feature I personally really like. Why? Because a telescope of this length can actually be used as a telephoto lens in daily scenarios. For example, you can mount it on a camera tripod head or a photography gimbal to shoot birds, snow-capped mountains, or animals. So incorporating this design is very practical. Or for instance, during the lunar eclipse the other day, you can directly mount it on a photography gimbal. This is very well executed, like my previous Red Cat 51. The one design aspect I really liked was that its factory-included dovetail plate supported two standards. One side is Arca style and the other side is for Vixen style. But using it was still somewhat troublesome because you had to unscrew it first and then flip it over and retouch it. Therefore, ToupTek's solution is even better. Now let's talk about another clever design of this telescope, its lens hood. This lens hood is different from the Red Cat's design, which you unscrew and reattach via threads, and different from ASCA ATPHQ's design, where you loosen a knob, pull it out, and tighten it again. Instead, ToupTek uses magnets. When you need to extend the lens hood, you simply pull it out. There are magnets on both ends that hold it in place. The fixation is quite secure, although when I first used it, I was concerned that it might retract on its own. But in practice, my worries were unfounded. The advantage of this design is that it can slightly reduce the time needed to set up the telescope for an observation session. Just think about it. Whether it's threaded or knob-based, you have to screw it, which can be time-consuming. This push-pull design is much quicker and more straightforward. Next, let's discuss the optical performance of this telescope. The one I have is a sample unit sent to me by ToupTek, so my views are based on this specific unit. As for the actual imaging quality of the mass-produced version, we'll need to wait for the users who purchased the product to share their experiences in the comments section. To summarize, the optical performance of this telescope is unassuming at first but astonishingly impressive. It is important to note that after all, this is just a small 60mm aperture refractor. Its ability to resolve details in nebula and galaxies is certainly not comparable to large Newtonian telescopes with 200mm or even larger, because the laws of diffraction and physics determine its upper limit. However, what I want to stress is that this telescope far surpasses other telescopes in the same aperture class I've ever used before, such as the Red Cat and the Takahashi FCT65D. The Takahashi I have tested had the original reducer and flattener attached. First of all, across the entire 4-frame range, the stars are extremely fine. When I used it with the Sky 62 AC camera, similar to Sony Alpha 7R Mark V, which has comparable imaging capabilities. The first time I saw the images, I noticed that the size of many stars was only slightly larger than the camera's noise pixels. And what does this indicate? It means that the Sky 62 AC camera, when used with these telescopes, is undersampled. In simpler terms, this camera has become the imaging bottleneck of this HOPE D60 and limiting the telescope's performance. It's no longer the optical quality, but the camera's pixel resolution that's holding it back. Additionally, across the 4-frame range, my tests showed that the illumination fall-off is very minimal. Even at the corners of the 4-frame, the brightness remains above 90%. Finally, regarding ToupTek's claim of strong imaging capabilities, I initially thought it might be overstated, but after practical use, I feel it's not overstated at all. In fact, it's somewhat conservative. Why do I say it's conservative? For example, I used it with ToupTek's OAG in a 4-frame configuration, and I found that the stars in the OAG's field were still very round. So I believe that while the ToupTek claims the supposed imaging circle is 44mm, which only covers 4-frame, but in practice, this telescope could theoretically be used with a medium format camera without any issues. Its optical quality is more than sufficient. During my testing of the telescope's optical capabilities, I also found that the focus shift due to temperature changes is very minimal. As for low temperature stress patterns, I will need to wait for colder weather in my city to check if stress issues occur at lower temperatures. My channel subscribers might know that I own a 200mm Newtonian. As I mentioned earlier in the video, small EPOs like this have a rather small aperture, limited by physical size, and their ability to resolve details is inevitably inferior to larger telescopes. Some of you might ask, since you already own a larger Newtonian, why are you still so fond of small refractors like this? Well, one reason is that small telescopes like this have a wider field of view, allowing you to capture larger areas of sky at once. But that's only a superficial reason. The deeper reason is a bit difficult to explain effectively here, so let's change locations first. Now I am in Tibet, at an altitude of over 5,000 meters at Mount Kulha Gangri in the Himalayas. I am on the highest ridge of the Baimalingtuo Lakeside Trekking Road. The telescope I brought this time is this ToupTek HOPE D60 Astronomical telescope. This is why I say I'm so fascinated by small, high-performance APOs. My regular viewers might know that my first deep sky photography telescope was the RedCat 51, which was also a high-performance small APO. I took that telescope and for the first time of my life, I captured satisfying astro photographs with my friend. I carried it along with a Skywatcher SAGTI and I mounted it on an unmodified Sony Alpha 7R Mark III. And then we photographed the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula beside the Qinghai Lake. That was my first deeply satisfying deep sky image. Later, I took that telescope to many unusual places, like capturing rocket launchers in California, shooting a partial solar eclipse, and my first trip to Lenghu for astrophotography was also with that RedCat. If it were a larger telescope, even though it could capture more detailed nebula, but I'm sure you couldn't carry it around in a backpack. So, that RedCat 51 has become a part of my use. However, I eventually sold it because its performance could not keep up with my needs. This time in Tibet, I brought the HOPE D60 made by ToupTek. Along the way, I frequently stopped, mounted it on a camera, and used it as a telephoto lens to photograph the Mount Kulha Gangri snow-capped mountains. The Mount Kulha Gangri is now behind me. Earlier, I briefly saw the summit, but now it's covered by clouds. The weather hasn't been great this time, so I couldn't capture stars and snow-capped mountains together. But I think carrying it while trekking and using it to photograph mountains is keeping your feet on the ground, and this offers a different sense of reality. This is the charm of small EPOs that I have mentioned. At the end of the video, I would like to share what makes this ToupTek HOPE D60 telescope particularly special to me. Since I was unsatisfied with the RedCat 51's limitations at 4-frame edges, earlier this year, during a casual chat with the ToupTek technical support staff on WeChat, we fantasized about an ideal wide-field astronomical telescope. At that time, one of ToupTek's engineers happened to be nearby and saw our conversation. Then he mentioned a concept. I am not suggesting that this HOPE D60 was born directly from that discussion. If so, that would be rather presumptuous. But coincidentally, the timing of my receiving this telescope coincided with my 22nd birthday. Last year, on my 21st birthday, I received a gift from my father, the ASCA 80PHQ and a full set of ToupTek astro imaging equipment, including a camera, a stellarator, an OAG, and a guide camera. This set of equipment was the starting point of my connection with ToupTek. This year, although this telescope is loaned to me for test and review and I will need to return it eventually, I am still very grateful to ToupTek for giving me this unique opportunity, allowing me to be among the first to experience this astronomical telescope. For me personally, this is to date the best birthday gift I've ever received from outside my family.